Hello and welcome to episode 4 of my quest project. Today we will be talking about women punished by the gods in Greek mythology. Now, specifically the women we will be talking about are Lamia, Echo, Medusa, Arachne, and Cassandra. Now, Lamia was punished by Hera. Her punishment was that Hera kidnapped, killed, or forced Lamia to kill Lamia's own children, and the result of that punishment is that Lamia turned into a disfigured child-killing monster. Now, the full story of this is that, like many things, like many times, Zeus had an affair with a woman, in this case Lamia, and the difference with this affair is that Lamia bore children, and Hera she's like, doesn't like women Zeus has affairs with, but she has a huge problem when Zeus has children with these women. So Hera went like mad. She was kidnapping Lamia's kid, she was killing Lamia's kid, she was forcing Lamia to kill her kids, and this torture just went on and on. And Lamia eventually turned into this, like, as I said, this disfigured child killing and kidnapping monster who is sort of a boogeyman in Greek folklore. And Zeus, he kind of felt bad, which doesn't happen a lot, but Zeus kind of felt bad. So he gave Lamia the gift of prophecy and the ability to pluck out her eyes and replace them, because another part of Hera's punishment was that Lamia was just super sleep deprived. And to add more detail to the Lamia was killing babies, she was like killing them in the womb, like partly slaughtering their mothers. And looking back, she was really the first version of a vampire in folklore. Um, but she was given serpentine qualities later, as you can see in the image where she has that snake skin on her. That's painting is actually by John Waterhouse. It's one of the most tragic, but really one of the most interesting stories from this set of women. Moving on to Echo. Echo was also punished by Hera. Her punishment is that she can only speak the last words spoken to her, hence where we get the echo. The result of her punishment is she could not tell the man she loved about her feelings. Granted, the man she loved was a piece of crap. Narcissus, who is, Narcissus, where we get the word narcissist. So really, hate that she was punished, but is a little bit for the better. Now, whenever getting into the story, Hera, whenever Hera was about to catch Zeus cheating, Lamia kind of acted as like the barrier, or not Lamia, Echo kind of acted as the barrier between that. If you've ever seen Ted Lasso, you know how Rupert is having these affairs while Higgins is out having lunch with Rebecca? Uh, Echo is Higgins. So Echo would distract her with long conversations. She talked a lot before she was silenced. She was a very outgoing nymph. But once Hera realized, she cursed Echo. And kind of as a result of that, after Echo was punished, she met Narcissus. And she couldn't tell Narcissus how she felt, so she would just watch him from afar as he fell deeper and deeper in love with himself, eventually leading to his death. And she followed his hunt quietly because I think he either died hunting or like staring into the pond. But because she could only repeat the last words spoken to her, when he said, "Hands off, may I die before you enjoy my body," all she was able to repeat was, "Enjoy my body." But yeah, it's now that she's died, the only thing left is her voice, her echo. Um, Echo is a very tragic story, but there's a lot less murder in it. It's a less violent story, but it is also very tragic. This is probably one of the most well-known stories in Greek mythology, the story of Medusa. Medusa was famously punished by Athena, although her story is by Ovid, so Athena, Minerva, her punishment was that she was transformed into a gorgon. The result of her punishment is that everyone she looked at turned to stone. Now, everyone she looked at turned to stone. Now, the full story is Medusa was a priestess of Athena. She was a priestess of Athena, and Poseidon fell in love with her basically, and he pursued her. And while she was in Athena's temple, she was doing something for Athena. She was a priestess of her, and Athena, as we know, is a virgin goddess, and Medusa and her priestesses are expected to abide by the same. So Poseidon raped Medusa and in Athena's temple. So Athena punished Medusa for this, because a lot of stories of sexual assault in Greek mythology are the woman gets punished. And so Athena punished Medusa. It's basically viewed as no one could ever look at her again. She can never find love again. But the thing is, this story is viewed a bit differently sometimes in modern day. It's more seen as, oh, she didn't she Athena like was protecting Medusa, essentially, is how it's viewed nowadays. But if we look at other transformation stories in Ovid, that's not really how it's written. But it is very interesting to see how stories change throughout the years. But that is the whole story of Medusa. It's pretty short, honestly. But the thing in my research is that there's Medusa, the one who was a priestess of Athena, and then there is Medusa, who has Gorgon's sisters. And sometimes these two are the same figure, but that doesn't really make sense, because even when you say that, it's like, oh, Medusa is the only like mortal Gorgon or something. There's something different about Medusa, even when you say that she who was slain by Perseus is the same as she who was raped by Poseidon. But the thing with how Perseus got related to Medusa is Perseus was doing something, and Athena and Hermes were involved somehow, and part of the something he had to do was kill Medusa. So he went, killed her. The Pegasus popped out. I'm not reading that from my notes. I'm looking in my window and trying to remember if that's true. And I'm like, honestly, 70% sure it is. Some of these stories are wild, dude. But essentially, Medusa is kind of two people, but also one person, but it's very different and very annoying. If you have ever tried to study or learn anything about Greek mythology, there will be 4 versions of every single story, and it gets very difficult. Often when I'm like, oh, this person was the child of this person, I mean the most commonly told version, the most commonly told parentage. Because there's also like, it was these two, it was this one, it was just this person. It gets very complicated. Now, moving on to Arachne. Arachne was punished by Athena. Her punishment was being transformed into a spider, and as a result of the punishment, she became the first spider. Now, this is the one I actually know best from the top of my head. Arachne was the daughter of some sort of craftsman, I believe, and she was really, really, really good at weaving. Like, really, really, really good. And it was like thought that she was one of these people who was like blessed, one of like somebody every 100 years who was blessed by Athena. That's how good at weaving she was. But that wasn't really but she got a little too confident, and she was like, I'm a better weaver than Athena. And Athena was like, yo, I know that you're like doing pretty good, and I'm happy I gave you this little blessing or whatever, but you can't go saying that. And she's like, but I am. And Athena was like, interesting, interesting, interesting. So Athena came down to Earth disguised as an old woman and challenged Arachne to a weaving contest. And Athena wove scenes of, oh my goodness, what is it? Athena weaved these like beautiful stories of the gods, while Arachne weaved the gods' sins. Like, it was either, actually, Athena might have wove like gods punishing mortals, honestly, but it was one of the two did that. But it was just really, oh, here's what it was. Athena depicted contests between gods and mortals, and the gods punishing the mortals for their hubris, because, a lot of hubris. And Arachne just kind of depicted the gods punishing mortals. Actually, those are 2 different stories, because as I said, there are so many stories in Greek mythology. But Arachne's weaving was really, really good, and Athena was like, oh crap, it's kind of really, really good. So she beat Arachne with a shuttle, which is the tool you use on a loom. And then she kind of felt bad, and she was like, okay, I'll take some pity on you. She turned her into the world's first spider, and that is also why spiders have such intricate and beautiful webs? Because they all ascend from Arachne. Descend from Arachne. Oh my goodness. Now, Cassandra is the only woman on this list punished by a man. She was punished by Apollo. Her punishment is that no one would believe her prophecies. And the result of that punishment is the entire fall of Troy. I recently did a Model United Nations Council that was on the Trojan War, and I know a lot about the Trojan War now. But, oh my goodness. So, essentially, Apollo looked at Cassandra and he's like, oh my gosh, you're really hot. And she's like, thank you. And he was like, will you go on a date with me? And she's like, And he's like, what if I give you the gift of prophecy? And she's like, okay. But then she didn't go on a date with him. And he was like, I don't really like that. So then he cursed her and he was like, no one will ever believe your prophecies. And this was a little bit of an issue. It was also said that maybe like snakes licked her and her brother's ears or something, and that's how they got the gift of prophecy. Anyways, the Apollo one's the most accepted one, really. But she was like, oh, that's not kind. So it was kind of just chilling. Everyone was chilling for a while. And then no. There's something before the Trojan horse. She predicted Paris would bring ruin to Troy, but that's not the one I was thinking of. I feel like I'm thinking of, she was like, no, don't let him go there. He'll die. And they were like, why should we believe you? And then the guy died. But the main thing is that the Trojan horse got delivered. There was this huge feast before that though, King Priam, her father, the last king of Troy, locked her away because he was like, you are kind of embarrassing me. But jumping back, Trojan horse was delivered. Troy was having this huge feast, and she was like, no. That horse has Greeks in it. They're going to kill us. And she went at the wooden horse with a torch and an axe, and she was like ready to go. And they like held her back, and they're like, oh my gosh, you are crazy. What are you doing? Guess what happened, guys? The horse had Greeks in it. And they all came out. She did not get to pull an I told you so. She actually ran to the temple of Athena in Troy, and she clung to this really famous statue of Athena. But she clung to this very famous statue of Athena, and this statue was said, I talked about it a few videos ago, is that as long as it was standing, Troy would stand, if that makes sense. Like, if the statue fell, Troy would fall. So Ajax the Lesser came, he was not, oh my gosh, I forget where he was from, but he came and he saw Cassandra, and he ripped her, he like pulled her, and with her being dragged away, the statue fell down. That's how tight she was holding on to it. So with that, Troy fell, and Ajax the Lesser, by the way, his brother was better than him. He raped her in Athena's temple, thereby sacrilегing the temple. And then he took her back to, I don't believe it was Sparta. I forget what kingdom Agamemnon ruled, but she became Agamemnon's concubine. And then Agamemnon's wife and her male mistress, they got really, really pissy that Agamemnon had a concubine. So they killed Agamemnon and Cassandra, and this German businessman was actually thought to have found Agamemnon and Cassandra's tomb, but it predated the Trojan War by 300 years, or post-dated it. But Cassandra's is a very tragic story, but a very interesting one. All of these are interesting, but quite tragic. Now, some common, aka overarching themes. 3 women, Lamia, Medusa, and Arachne, were transformed as part of their punishment. Lamia, Echo, Medusa, and Arachne were all punished by women. Medusa and Arachne, both of their stories were written by Ovid. Patriarchal themes involved in punishment is Lamia, Echo, Medusa, and Cassandra. Lamia and Echo were punished by Hera. Medusa and Arachne were punished by Athena. And Lamia and Arachne were punished for their hubris. Now, that is a lot of information to take in. But it is all something I noticed that I was originally going to build the thesis of this video off of, that I didn't. But I did notice a lot of these themes. And there was also 2 other stories that I unfortunately didn't get to include, which is the story of Niobe and the story of Aura. Both tragic stories, both women punished by the gods. Niobe was also punished for her hubris. Aura also punished for her hubris. Very quick rundown. Niobe insulted Leto. Leto sent Artemis and Apollo to kill her kids. Aura insulted Artemis. Artemis talked to Nemesis, who talked to Eros. Eros shot Dionysus, and Dionysus raped Aura, and then Aura had a baby, two twins from that rape. She ate one of the twins, but Artemis took the other one before she could eat it, because Aura had gone crazy. So then that's basically the whole rundown of her story, but they could also be worked into these overarching or common themes. Anyways, that was women punished by the gods in Greek mythology. Thank you so much.